Let's bring in the aforementioned New Jersey Congressman and Democratic candidate for Senate, Andy Kim. He is looking to oust Menendez this November while the incumbent senator runs as an independent. Congressman, it's good to have you with us. Your reaction to a verdict that includes convictions on charges of bribery, extortion, acting as a foreign agent, obstruction of justice, and several counts of conspiracy. Do you believe now that Senator Menendez needs to step aside?
Yeah, I look at this in two ways. One is that, I work a job, the senator works a job. We work jobs whose job descriptions are in the Constitution of the United States. And that should call upon us to be held to the highest level of accountability and standard. And the second part is from the people of New Jersey. 84% of people in New Jersey surveyed believe that their elected officials are corrupt. How can a democracy function? How can my state be able to manage all the challenges that we face with that much distrust? We have a crisis of trust in government right now in New Jersey and around the country, and that compels the senator to do the right thing for us and allow us to be able to move forward, turn the corner, and try to restore a sense of integrity to our politics.
So Senator Cory Booker, of course, Senator Menendez's colleague from New Jersey, has said he will help now lead the effort to expel Bob Menendez from the United States Senate. Chuck Schumer came out yesterday for the first time and said, okay, now we have convictions. It's time. He's got to go away. Should Senator Menendez be expelled from the Senate?
If it comes to that, I trust the Senate to move forward in that direction. But for the sake of New Jersey, for the country, the best option here is for the senator to own up to what has happened, that he had his day in court, which is what he asked for. He had a fair shot at this, and the people and the jury deliberated and decided he should accept that and on his own volition step down. But if that does not happen, I believe that the Senate will move forward with that vote.
And it's pretty clear, Claire, Senator Menendez, your former Democratic colleague, is not going to accept this. He says he's very disappointed. He doesn't believe it's a fair or accurate verdict and that he is going to appeal. It doesn't look anyway like he's going anywhere.
Yeah, I don't even know where to start with this guy. Who does this? Who is put on trial for criminal acts as a United States senator, and there's a hung jury, he's not acquitted, and then he comes back and takes cars and gold bars and cash stuffed in jackets, and then he stands in front of the courthouse and acts like he's a victim? The most selfish act possible is for Bob Menendez not to look in the mirror and realize for the good of his country, if he cares about his country, he needs to get out of town. And by the way, what jerk blames his new wife at the trial? Who does that?
Cancer-stricken wife, we should add.
I would use a word right now that they would not like me to use in the control room, but he is just a word that starts with an A and ends with an E. Mm-hmm. He is a jerk, and he needs to go. And I want Schumer to call the expulsion vote. I think he should call it next week, and let the Republicans stew in the fact that a Democratic administration prosecuted a Democratic politician, and they maybe want to protect him. What kind of hypocrisy would that be? So let's call the vote and kick his ass out.
By the way, even just with the two vowels, I'm prepared to solve the puzzle. I know what the word is. Mike?
But Claire, back to the United States.
Sorry, I'm just out of my tree about this guy.
We'll talk about the institution itself. Congressman Kim was just talking about the obligations of public officials, and the institution itself, once revered, no longer revered.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I feel for Congressman Kim because, New Jersey has had more than its fair share of scandal around politicians. And it really is time. I think the congressman represents a new day in New Jersey politics. Some of the old people have fallen away. There have been other convictions that have occurred. I think it is time for New Jersey to move to a new, brighter future without corruption. And listen, is expulsion extreme? Yeah. The people who've been expelled from the United States Senate, most of them fought for the Confederacy and were part of the Confederacy. So this is something that would be extreme, but I think it's time for that. Barnacle, I think it's time for the United States Senate to stand strong for being against people who take gold bars from foreign countries or people when they're chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee of the United States Senate.
And access to classified information.
It's just
and
all
this is
of that.
about our national security.
All
in
of
many
that.
ways.
All of that.
So, Congressman, you're very clear about that. Let's get you on another topic we've been talking about this morning. President Biden, of course, says he wants to stay atop the ticket. There's been a push now by the DNC to hold a virtual roll call to officially nominate him in the next week or so, they're saying, so well ahead of the Chicago convention. Do you agree with that? Because there are many House lawmakers, many of your colleagues who have spoken out sharply against it, saying, why are we rushing this? We're still having a debate as to whether or not he's the best choice to lead the party.
Yeah, I mean, look, the question is what is necessary right now, given the timelines that are out there? And, as far as Ohio goes, we've seen a resolution to that issue in terms of what Ohio has done. So the point here is that when we move forward as a party, we have to do so with unity. Right now, we're certainly having our discussions and our debates. And to try to force something right now, push something that's premature, that's not needed, given what we've seen with the resolution, I don't think that's the right way to go forward. I think that there is room for us to have tough conversations with each other. We should do it now. I'm not... as someone who's lived through that Build Back Better time, I don't think we should be messaging to one another through Twitter. I think we should find ourselves in a room, lock the door until we come up with an understanding about what the strategy is going forward. And until we do so, I think that we have more time.
Do you believe, Congressman, the president should stay in the race?
Well, look, that's his decision. He is.
Well, he says he's made his decision that he's staying in.
And look, I think that right now, if he wants to proceed in that direction, he needs to show that we have unity amongst the rest of the Democratic leadership. And that is something that we don't have right now. So, I do think that it's on him then to be able to bring everyone together and to be able to have those conversations, lay out the strategy. The conversations we have so far have not gone into the level of depth that's clearly needed for us to be able to think this through. So I respect him. I worked for him before at the White House. I understand how he thinks. He is somebody that is not going to be pushed into a decision. He's somebody that I think would be better for us to surround ourselves, have that kind of upfront conversation in person, rather than everything that's being laid out through social media. I don't think that this process that's happening right now is beneficial for our party.
He's been clear again and again, including yesterday, saying, I'm all in, that he's staying in the race. And it seems like Democrats can't take yes for an answer. So what is the conversation that's happening right now among your colleagues?
Well, I think the conversation that everyone wants to know is what is the full strategy here going forward? What's going to change coming out from the debate going forward in terms of how it's going to be messaged, what his posture would be in terms of public appearances and other things like that. And, we just haven't had that conversation. I think a lot of my colleagues don't feel like, myself included, don't feel like we've gotten the full sense of that. And I think that there's still room that's not best to be done through, again, through Twitter and social media. I really think at this point, we need to be able to show unity. I mean, look what we're seeing right now with the Republican National Convention. We're seeing a tremendous amount of effort on their end to try to project unity. And unity around very scary and dangerous proposals that will change this country forever. I'm a father of a 7-year-old and an 8-year-old. I don't want them growing up in America with Donald Trump back in the Oval Office. So, this is very personal to a lot of us, and we want to make sure that we're in the best position. As a Democrat that won a district Trump won twice, I know what it takes to be able to win tough areas. I have ideas to be able to contribute, and our party should be able to unite around that approach of what it means for our country at this point.
Joe?
Well, Congressman, does that mean then that the politician and president, they got 14 million votes in the Democratic primary that has about 90% of the delegates, that he needs to be surrounded with support? I mean, because at this point, he has told everybody he's going to stay in the race. He told Reverend Al over the past weekend he's in the race for good. He's told everybody else he's in the race for good. And we've talked about it before, and it's just polls. I mean, I was once a politician, and, I always look at trend lines and polls. I didn't look at the exact numbers, but I did follow trend lines. I've got to say, every poll that I've seen out the last week, even polls taken after the tragic assassination attempt, actually show a tightening race. Redfield and Wilton, 43-42. Morning Consult, 46-45. Let's see, what else do we have here? Ipsos, 43-41. A Georgia race, it's now within 3 points. That's close. And again, I don't obsess over such things, but Democrats are. This is just out from 538. Their projection, Joe Biden, 277 electoral votes based on all of their polling data. Donald Trump, 261 electoral votes. And they say that is the highest Joe Biden has been since May the 20th. So there's really not a good argument to be made, is there, that what's happened over the last couple of weeks, no matter how bad it's been, is stylistically has hurt him in the polls, because they've actually tightened up, haven't they, Congressman?
Yeah, look, I certainly think there is a real path to victory, and I believe that that we can be able to win with the approach that we're taking. But it's about, how do you close that last gap? How do you get those last few points that bring you over the top? Get the people who are still undecided. And there needs to be a real strategy about that right now. And I think that that's the conversation that needs to happen within the Democratic Party leadership to be able to get everybody on board. And that's not where everyone's at
Congressman,
right now.
Congressman, 14 million Democrats across the country who still obviously support him. If you look at these polls, 14 million Democrats. How would you feel if you won your Democratic primary by 85%? And then when you got into the general election campaign, you had, mayors and party bigwigs and donors saying, oh, Congressman shouldn't run. We don't like how he debated. He needs to get out of the race. Would you get out of the race?
Well, look, that's not what I'm saying right now. This is a decision, again, for the president. This is a decision for the nominee. In terms of the strategy going forward, I'm not just saying
Congressman, he's made the decision. He's running. He's in it to win it.
I'm talking about the strategy, the message. How do we close those final points? That's what I want to hear from him. And what I think we can then say, how can we help? What is our role? And certainly, what's my role in New Jersey? What's the role across the board? So I think that that's the kind of approach that we should be taking. And I think that'll help us unify as quickly as possible.
Hey there, MSNBC fans. I'm Luke Russert, and be sure to join me, Rachel Maddow, Jen Psaki, Lawrence O'Donnell, Steve Kornacki, Joy Reid, and many more September 7th in Brooklyn. MSNBC Live Democracy 2024. Click on the link for ticket information. We will see you there.